Hi everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to use the binder attachment and the bias gauge. Before we start on the binder attachment, I'm just going to put this to one side for now, and we're going to talk about this little fella here. So you may have this, let me zoom in, you may have this little thing in your collection of attachments. It looks, from this perspective, it looks similar to a seam guide that would attach to the bed of your machine like this, but obviously there is no attachment screw. So it's an odd little thing if you don't know what it's for. This has, let me move that out of the way. This has obviously a sliding piece of metal, and then if I hold it at the right angle, you can see there's 3 letters on there: F, B, and C. F stands for facing, B for binding, and C for cording. So in order to use this attachment, which is a binder, we need to set this gauge to B for binding. Now mine's a little bit stiff, but I'm going to line that up like that with the little line next to the B. The next thing we're going to need is our fabric scissors. And some people say that they don't fit on your scissors, so have a go with your fabric scissors and just see what it should do with your scissors. I've just got quite cheap fabric scissors, but when you open your scissors up, it's the bottom piece that we are going to focus on, and they sit or cradle in that edge there. Now I give it a little nudge just so that if I shake them, they don't come off. And when I close the scissors, it hits this little piece here. Okay, my scissors don't actually close very well. Even if they do, they kind of tap on that end. But that's okay, because we're not going to be closing the scissors. But what I just want to make sure is that this attachment is on as tightly as I can get it. Now we're going to see how it works. So I just have a piece of, it's an old pillowcase actually. I'm not going to cut on the bias because I'm going to do a demonstration where I'm just attaching some binding to a straight edge. But if you wanted to cut your own bias tape, you could use this little guy here, and you would make sure you would cut on the bias. For me, I'm just going to take a long piece to start with. So it's helpful if you have a straight edge to start you with. And then all you do, I should have ironed it, all you do is you slide your fabric under and it will hit this piece of metal, and then simply cut and slide up and cut, slide up again and cut, and just keep cutting. And what that's doing is cutting the exact length that you need for your bias attachment. So I'm going to cut one piece, and then I'm going to just cut a second piece so that I can show you. Oops, sorry, let me get this in the video. And with this attached, this little gauge, you can cut as many pieces as you want. So actually I'm going to cut one more. you don't need this anymore. But that's basically how it uses it. If you wanted to do cording, obviously you'd set that gauge to the next notch down. If you were doing facings, you would just move it across. But this will give you an accurate cut all the way down. For the purpose of this attachment, that bias gauge is perfect, because I know I now have the perfect width of fabric. Oh look, it's slightly unnotched, but pretty much the perfect width of fabric for this fella. So let's just have a quick look at this. So again, all my attachments are for low shank machines. You've probably got one sitting in your attachment box. It has a little screw, and that screw adjusts where the needle slides across. And the reason why you might want to adjust that is because when your bias tape, which is what we're going to make, when that bias tape is stitched and folded, for example like that, that screw determines where the needle stitches, which is how far away from this edge the stitching is. If that doesn't make sense, I'll show you on the sewing machine next anyway. But with undoing that screw, you can't really see it, not really on that one, but you can see that there's these little notches here. It means that this section, obviously this piece of metal is attached on top of this bit underneath, but it will slide, it will naturally slide. It might be a bit stiff if you've never used it, but it will actually move back and forth. But this screw fixes it in place. I'm not going to do anything with mine. So if your binder is slightly out, you can see that the two little eyes, they look like eyes, or a little shop little robot, are to the right of these indents. So that's how mine is set up. If I turn it this way, it looks like a set of lips. Gonna blow you a kiss. Okay, so this is a curved piece of metal going all the way round, and then these set of lips, if I turn it back, these set of lips blowing you a kiss. So what happens is this piece of fabric will feed in. Actually, what I'm going to do is you should do this with all your tape. Fold it in half so that your folded edge is on your left. Pinch it down about 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre and just snip. So now we've got a pointed edge. When we open it up, it's going to look like that. What we're going to do when the attachment is fitted to the machine is you slide that around the lips. Oh, try that again. Didn't catch enough. So hopefully you can see this on the camera. It's going to slide around the lips, and if you give it a little push, it's actually easier to do this on when it's attached. But what that will do, I've got a flimsy piece of fabric. It's better on the machine. It's better when it's attached to the machine because you can give it a bit of nudge. But that's what's happening. It's going to slide between the fabric. The fabric's going to slide around the lips. And if you've got a thing that I do not have handy and I should have got ready before I started the video, but hang on just a second while I get my little thing out. Okay, if you have one of these wicked, scary little things, you can push your fabric and push that through. Now, what we'll do is we will do this on the machine. I was hoping I could, do you know what, let me try something. Let me try a little Singer screwdriver. Ah, it fell out. When your attachment is fitted to your machine, what you should be able to do is slide this piece of fabric through, and then using something, some sort of implementy thing, is push that fabric along. Still using the wrong thing. Where's my other thing? This one, a bit thinner. You should be able to push this through and then pull the fabric through. And I still can't do it. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and actually fit this, and then we'll try again. This is just being stupid. And I'm at the wrong angle as well. Hang on. Now the camera won't pause. Hang on. Right, before we put it on the machine, before I faff anymore, the needle hole there, it's handy to just take your needle thread and just pop it through the attachment so that that's there, that's already set up ready. Then attach it to your machine. It's just tidier, that's all, and it means you're ready to go. Oh, I'm having a day of it today. Right, let me try that again. Okay. If I show you how not to do it, this will help you as well. Right. So, put it in that way round. There. If you want, you can make the mistakes with me, or just watch me make the mistakes. Okay, let's try again. Let's move all the muck out the way. Okay, so my attachment's on now, and I've threaded the top thread through. Now take your bias tape that you've just cut, and let me turn to this side a bit. So we're going to slide the fabric in around those little lips. Now I'm using very thin fabric, so I'm going to give it a nudge and it won't go any further. So use your pointy scary thing and just hook it enough. It's amazing how when I do it on video, it's super hard, but when I do it off camera, it works first time. How typical. Okay, I did it. So if I move a little bit closer, what you should see is, I use my pointer, is the end of the fabric is just pulled out, and what we want it to do is be underneath, enough of it underneath the needle. Now we'll drop the presser foot. What's happening is this is curling under. It's similar to the adjustable hemmer, so the way I hold it is going to be quite similar. Let me try and see if I can do it from this angle so you get to see more. So I put the presser foot down, and I'm just going to gently start to sew, and it will start to feed. And what I'm doing is I'm focusing on this edge here, because what I don't want in this fabric to roll or fold, start to fold more over on the top than the bottom, or start to roll and try and flatten itself out. So the idea is to try and hold it at an angle that gives equal amounts of fabric fold on both sides. So you can see the way I'm holding the fabric, just thumb and first finger, Now I can see it's starting to curl, so I'm using my finger to pull. Another option is to hold it at this angle, and I know my hand's in the way. Oh no, that was the wrong bit. That adjusted a bit wrong. I'm going to hold it straight. As long as it's not folding more one side than the other, and you're feeding it through equally. Let's just chunk that through. There. And then we can just continue sewing until it spits it out the back. Okay. So what this has done, right. What this has done is folded the face, a bit twisted, but that's because I cut it on the straight. So what it's done is it's folded it in on itself, very similar to the way pre-made bias binding is. Why would you want to make just little strips like this with this attachment? This is very, very good for example, buttonholes. So if I fold that like that, and I fold that down like that at right angles, you can have little hoops, like hooks for, you see them on coat jackets for toggles. So you can create little things like that. If I turn it that way around, you might be able to see it a bit better. Ooh, I didn't even fold it straight. That's because I'm looking in through the camera lens instead of actually what I'm doing. There. So squish that down. So you can see that can create like a toggle loop if you wanted to. You can also use it to, I've made these so that I can create little flannels in the bathroom, and just by stitching some of this down, it creates a little loop to be able to hook, attach it to a flannel or cloth, like a reusable kitchen towel. And these act as little like pre-made loops for looping things and hooking things. So this is quite, as an attachment, just creating this little strip is quite handy. Now you can see with my attachment, I didn't do any adjustments at all with this little screw, and the stitching is right in the center. Normally I would probably want that stitch to be a little bit closer to the edge, but what you would need to do, let me take this off just for a second. So what you would do is adjust this screw. Where did I put my screwdriver? Oh, hang on. Whoops. Let me find my screwdriver, and then I will show you how to adjust it. Because it's also using, so at the moment you can see that needle hole is directly in the center of this tube. And we can see that it creates the fabric the stitch right in the center. So what do I want? I want that hole to be more towards the left. Because if it's towards the left, if I look at my strip, it's going to bring it more to this side where although it's twisted, you can see where it's folded under. So let's just turn that screw. And just by turning that screw just a teensy bit, there you go. You can see that moves this. Your one might be a bit stiff, so just persevere with it. I'm going to go about there because that hole, the needle hole, is just in from this section. Actually, I think that's about right. So let's tighten that back up. Okay. Yeah, that should be all right. Let's see. So I'm going to do the same thing again. No, remember, I do it every time. Thread it through before you attach it. So let's just thread that through. Good job I can see it. Right, let's attach it. Okay, ta-da. Okay, now I also cut quite a few strips. I didn't chomp that one though, so let's just chomp. I'm going to do it at a slightly pointier angle without chopping my finger off. Sorry, I should be... It's because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing and not concentrating on what you guys can see in the camera. Okay. Try that again. So I've adjusted that now. So slide that through. Use my little scary persuader to just... As you can see, it takes a little bit of persuasion, but it will come through. Okay, so we're going to pull just enough so that it catches under the needle. Press the foot down. Okay, same thing again. We want to make sure that it's angled correctly. I'm going to try and go at this angle so that you can see it better. Start it off, and then all we're doing is just monitoring to make sure that the fabric doesn't curl more one way than another. Obviously, if you're using a long strip, it's going to be a bit harder. So I can see that it's starting to curl a bit funky. So I'm looking at this section here, because if I know the top is okay, then I know the bottom will be okay. I'm just angling it slightly. I'm just using thumb and fingers to just, there you go, let that eat that up. And spit it out the back. There, can you see that the stitching is more to the left now? Because we adjusted the screw compared to this one where it was dead center. So you can see that that's, I mean, it was only a subtle change with that screw, but it made the difference on there. So you can make up strips of this to create little tabs, little hooks, that sort of thing. You can, and I'll show you next, how you can attach this binding onto another piece of fabric. So let me just get that ready and then I will show you. So I didn't have the heart to make you watch me trying to thread that again, and ironically when I had the camera paused it threaded straight away. Anyway, right, so I've set this up ready and now I've got a different piece of fabric. This is just calico, and this is where this little ledge comes in and the lips. So I'm just going to move that a bit so that you can see. You can slide another piece of fabric through the middle of those lips and slide it in. Hang on, let me just lift the presser foot. So you have to kind of manipulate it a bit, but if we drop the presser foot, now this is where you need about 4 hands, and it's a bit more difficult with a crank, but I'm just going to slowly feed it through until the fabric on the left catches under the feed dogs. So that's done that now. So by making sure that this fabric is as close to the edge of that right hand part of the lips. There you go, it's caught a bit more. And then this piece of fabric should stay quite steady because it's caught here now. So we still have to pay attention to make sure that this top piece of fabric still curls the right way. So I'm going to use my fingers again, and as long as, actually I should tell you, so I'm using my middle finger and my first finger to pinch, but I'm actually leaning on this piece of fabric with my baby finger, just to see, I'm kind of doing that with it, just to make sure that everything's going to feed through together. Otherwise, what is point? And then let's make sure that that goes there. Again, this is similar to the narrow hemmer. This takes practice, so have some scraps ready. Cut yourself using your bias gauge. Cut some strips. Have some other strips ready. Now, it's slightly buckled, but that's okay. It's because it's always harder when you're trying to sew and use the camera as well. But you can see how what the bias has done is this attachment has wrapped it around the fabric at the same time. So you can see I've slightly twisted it. It is a lot easier when you're not trying to film yourself